I'm Melody Smith, Associate Director of Marketing and Digital Communications for the Presbyterian Mission Agency. And I'm so happy you've joined us today on our Being Matthew 25. We are counting down to the Matthew 25 Summit next month in Atlanta, just a little over a month away. Whether you're already part of the Matthew 25 vision or you just want to learn more about how to make a meaningful impact in and on the world, this event is for you. Today, we are joined by the Reverend Dr. Marcia Mount Shoop, author, theologian, and pastor. The Reverend Dr. Shoop serves as pastor and head of staff at Grace Covenant Presbyterian Church in Asheville, North Carolina, and she is the author of Let the Bones Dance, Embodiment and the Body of Christ, and Touchdowns for Jesus, Lifting the Veil on Big Time Sports. She also co-authored A Body Broken, A Body Betrayed, Race, Memory, and Eucharist in White Dominant Churches. We are so honored to have the Reverend Dr. Shoop join us at the summit and here today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Melody. It's great to be here, and I'm already looking forward to the event in Atlanta. It's always great to get together with colleagues. It really strengthens what we can do as a church, as a denomination.
This is an exciting event. It's our first one ever. So the speaker list keeps getting richer and richer. And it definitely was that when they added you to the roster. So
Thank you.
I'm excited. And I should say that in preparing for this interview, I read through your website some.
Well, thank you.
And there was some interesting stuff in there. And, I'm going to start with the tough one first, or maybe
Sure.
the deeper one first, not so much tough. I did read something that said that healing is the heart of the work that you do. And for most of your life, you have worked on reconciliation and dialogue around difficult issues like race, political polarization, and religious differences in academia, church, and community context. So that's a lot. What does healing and reconciliation look like to you in this polarizing political arena that we unfortunately find ourselves in?
Thank you, Melody. That is the heart of the work that I do. And so for 11 years, I did that work all over the country as a consultant. And for the last almost 8 years, I've been doing this work located in a congregation and in a community. And I've noticed just the richness of what can happen when you are able to embed yourself in a community over time. As a consultant, this work looked like resourcing, tooling, maybe asking some hard questions, helping people get some visceral data in their bodies about what it actually can feel like to start to try some different things in terms of how we listen to one another, how we frame different problems, how we practice mutual vulnerability. But then I would leave, those places as a consultant. And there was sometimes a real relief about that. Like, woo, good luck with that, y'all. I'll, keep me posted on how you're doing. But I've been at Grace Covenant since July 2016. And we've really, for this, 7.5 years, really worked together to center this healing work around, especially around how white supremacy shows up in our bodies, in our relationships, in our church, in our larger community. And frankly, these last 7.5 years in our country are some of the most polarized we've ever experienced. So as this church has gone deeper and deeper into the work, and we've begun to really experience and live into some of the fruits of it, the world around us is just so reactive and so filled with what I would call a white lash, around some of the of the liberation work that many are doing around the country and around the world. So for me, it begins with the body. Our bodies are so wise, and they can teach us a lot about why we hold on to certain things, why we react to certain things, and the capacity that we have for change and transformation. So a lot of what we do at Grace Covenant is centers around practice and process. I'm really not as focused on outcomes as I am on how we do things, and really just seeing everything we do as a practice that helps our bodies get habituated to certain things. And so, especially in this world of polarization, just really being able to be self-aware, to do your own work so that you know what your reactive places are, you know how to take care of yourself in difficult conversations, you know the resourcing that you have within yourself of breath, of grounding, of the kind of regulation that you can do in your bodies to stay in hard conversations. If we can keep the collective, temperature in these difficult conversations kind of at a level of some kind of equanimity, some kind of mutual regard, that we're really committed to healing the human family, there's a lot of hard stuff we can talk about, and not just talk about it, but actually have different experiences. And I'll say one more thing about this work. There's been a lot of talk in the last, especially 10 years in the broader culture around trauma and being trauma informed. Trauma theory has been around for much longer than that, and I'm very grateful for my doctoral work, in which I got to do a lot of work in trauma theory. So a lot of this transformative work is about making space for the way trauma shows up in a room, the way it shows up in conversations, relationships, reactions, the way it shows up, especially in white collectives, the way white communities react with aversive behavior, avoidance, intellectualization, some of the things I write about and Let the Bones Dance. That if we can start to notice these habits, not judge them, but really notice how they work and how they stop us and limit our ability to be in relationship with people of color, but also people who really bear the weight, people of color, LGBTQIA folks, other folks who carry the weight of oppression in our culture. When we start to realize the impact of our habits in white communities, and that they too come out of trauma, we can start to do this work with a lot more compassion and just a lot more generosity. There has to be space. There has to be room. Sometimes we really have to slow down for a minute and just be with some pain. Sometimes we need to speed up a little bit and move through some really hard stuff, things we've been avoiding. But let's go in. Let's do this. Let's feel this together. Let's support each other as we do this hard thing together. So embodiment, practice, and white supremacy really being intentionally named and surfaced and exorcised. These are the conditions that I think are required for true repair. And without true repair, we can't really have true justice. We can't really have true peace. We can't have healing. So, and it all starts
Amen.
with our bodies and what they teach us about how to heal.
And because it comes from our bodies, that's the screaming voice that says, don't go there, don't have that conversation. It's going to be hard. I don't want to have that conversation. So
yeah. And I'm scared. Our body tells us that we're in danger. Sometimes, especially white bodies can feel like we're in danger when we aren't really in physical danger. There might be some kind of existential, your whole worldview is getting ready to blow up, danger.
Yeah.
But in most of these discussions around racialization, around social change, the white bodies in the room are not in danger. And so how do we, invite people who move in white bodies to really, again, understand the deep resourcing that you have within yourself to do this? You're not as fragile as you think you are, or you're not as you're not as reactive too as you may feel you're going to be. And that takes a lot of practice, and it takes support. It takes support. So that's what I feel like we're trying to build here at Grace Covenant is a true community of support where we're doing the work. It's hard work, and we're doing it in a supportive environment where, where we want to be with each other in the hard parts.
Well, I think the only thing that, as far as the danger, they're in danger of being very uncomfortable.
Yes.
And that's what they're running from the most, which, is our natural fight or flight thing. So that's God's work you're definitely doing there.
Yes.
So you will be co-leading a workshop at the summit, and it's called The Role of White Voices in Anti-Racism. So this is a great segue to what we were just talking about. We often hear people discount historical harms as though, well, I didn't do it. That was my ancestors. I didn't do that. And though we may not be responsible for what our ancestors have done, we need to be aware and sensitive to the consequences of what was done and still being done by some. And we need to learn from it. To paraphrase from your blog, while we are all both victim and perpetrator in different gradations in this world, there are some who carry the weight of violence and abuse more accurately than others. Being able to acknowledge that we have not, as white Christians, been the ones to carry the heaviest load of oppression in America is an important practice for our nation's healing to go deeper. I'd like to hear some more about what you think the church can, how you could think the church can participate in healing on a national level.
Yeah.
Or is that a physician heal thyself first situation with the church?
Well, I really feel like it's a both and. I mean, mainline Christianity, and by that we can just put in mainline white Christianity. That's what mainline Christianity was white Christianity. Has had a major, profound role in the formation of this country, in our values, in our rhetoric, in our laws, in our culture. Presbyterians were there at the very beginning, both in colonization and in the writing of the Constitution. Presbyterians have been governors, presidents, doctors, lawyers, mayors. We've been right in there in the kind of formal channels of power in this country. So, for me, it's not so much about being responsible for our ancestors as it is being honest and truthful about the culture that we still carry and that we still use to make sense of the world. So I don't feel that that we're out of the harm that has been done for generations. I feel like we continue it, and that the church, white Christian churches, have been some of the main carriers of this, have been some of the main apologists for this, in under the guise of virtue, under the guise of civic ethics, and under the guise of things like law and order, decent and in order. All of these things bundle within them a lot of white-led normativity that just doesn't get named. It's unraced, even though it is very, very deeply from white perspectives and white normativity. So the first thing I would say is that's between you and your ancestors in terms of what you feel responsible for. I know my ancestors are often close, and my family really focused on social responsibility. That's been something I have inherited. That's part of my ancestors' legacy. So if I sat here and said I'm not responsible for my ancestors, they'd probably come through the that from the afterworld and smack me in the head and say, where did you get that? We've always taught social responsibility. And I think we do too as Presbyterians. We realize that's a part of our heritage, that we are responsible for the human family, and not in a paternalistic way, but in a deeply humble way. Like, that's how we understand stewardship. That's how we understand sin. That's how we understand redemption. It's a collective experience. So for me, just the fact that I'm an interdependent creature that was born and raised and assimilated into the world of Presbyterianism and white Christianity as one of the leading kind of formative movers and shakers in the American culture. I'm right there in the middle of it. And so you can call it responsibility. You can call it just genetics. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it archaeology, ethnography, whatever. We're in it. And so, but to answer your question about how we can have an impact on a national level, I think we're doing it in the Presbyterian Church USA in a lot of ways. It's not just words, but it's inviting our denomination into a time of deep transformation, of coming, a reckoning with our past, the things that we have done, the things that we have left undone, the things that we've propped up in terms of systems and structures, the ways that churches have avoided the difficult work of transformation in order to accommodate the powerful, accommodate the wealthy. These are hard conversations we're having now in our denomination. And that does have a national impact. You can talk to Jimmy Hawkins. He's our Presbyterian hands and feet and voice on the floors of Congress and the halls of Congress. The heart of who we are is to provoke justice for and with those who bear the weight of oppression in our context. And in America, the people who bear the weight of oppression are Black, brown, Indigenous, and in many instances also they do not fit the norms of heteronormativity. They are LGBTQIA. They are differently abled. They are people who are not non-Christians. And this is work that we're led to from our greatest ancestor, Jesus. This is the work that he did in his life, in his context. And he leads the way. That's why this movement in the PCUSA is called Matthew 25, because it's Christ-centered, it's Christ-led. So, and I have one more thing to say about the national impact. Where do people learn their moral courage? They learn it at church. Mm. And I see this happening at Grace Covenant. The more we deepen our shared analysis, the more we do our own inner work, the more we start to deconstruct whiteness and how it has motivated and shaped our behavior in the civic square, the more we show up in public conversations, in political spaces, with courage, with clarity. not apologizing, not accommodating, but really with a strong, clear voice for justice. And so I feel like churches, just like in the civil rights movement with the Black church, churches who are doing this work, that is the place where activists are being born and people with moral courage are being nourished. And people who are willing to stick their necks out and put some skin in the game are being supported and strengthened in our ability to make an impact nationally and locally and around the world, frankly. So churches, we've got a big job to do. We teach people to be fearless, because that's what faith is. And there's nothing else that can teach people that like faith can.
It's right there with Matthew 25 and these difficult issues that they have lifted up and challenged churches to embrace. The tagline to Matthew 25 is actively engaged in the world. And if you don't learn that at church, I'm not sure where you do learn that. You're right. So the last thing I'd like to ask is, again, about Matthew 25, which is what the event is about. Matthew 25 is about treating others as God would treat us. I actually encouraged them originally to use the tagline, "It's what Jesus said," because it's what Jesus said,
Amen.
They didn't get the humor of it, but it's about the goats and the sheep, and it's about welcoming the stranger, and we learn all that through church. So as people come to this summit and attend your workshop, what do you hope they take away back to their ministry?
That's a good question. I hope that they take a deepened trust in the ways that God is moving and calling us as people of faith, both to personal and collective work. I think when you're around other people doing the work, you really do, kind of feel yourself leaning into the trust, that trusting that God's hand is in this. We get this, kind of shot of adrenaline and hopefulness when we're with other people doing the work. It doesn't feel so lonely. So a deepening trust of that this is what God is calling us to do. The other thing I hope people get is just a really visceral sense of the creativity, the vitality, the life that there is in this work. Some people I've heard say, well, I can't really do that work in my congregation because I would lose people, or people would stop pledging. Yep, they probably will. Some will, but more will come. And I believe that Grace Covenant's vitality is not in spite of the work we're doing around mutual liberation. It's because of it. All of our new members name that as why they are coming to Grace Covenant. And so there's creativity, there's freedom, there's life in this work. And I hope people can really feel that and just be energized by that. And then finally, I pray that they can come away with some new connections, with a sense of accompaniment, of companionship, of resourcing that there is out there, that we can come together. I just remember those lifelines during COVID. We learned how to hop on a Zoom and caucus with one another and talk about a problem and troubleshoot and encourage and game plan and all of those things. We know how to do that. We know how to get together and practice right relationship and get really empowered and energized for the work ahead. And so I hope people come with a new sense of like, hey, I can get a Zoom conversation going with these 3 people that I met. We can have a monthly, just, pep talk meeting. We can do lots of things so that this will not be so taxing or draining, that this will actually be something that is life-giving and sustaining and inspiring.
Well, that's how I would describe our time together today as well. This has been so great, and it is exciting me for next month, which is not that far away.
I know.
So I just want to thank you so much for joining us. It has been a pleasure
Thank
and
you,
talking with
Melanie.
you about your work as well as what you will be talking and sharing with at the summit. So I hope you all are planning on joining us at the summit in January. You won't want to miss this chance to learn from and dialogue with gifted speakers, writers like the Reverend Dr. Shoop. Registration is still open, so don't wait. We look forward to seeing you there, and I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you.